in Burgundy, wines are named after where they come from, and the naming system, the labeling system that we have right now dates from the 1930s. There's always been over the over the centuries, every generation threw up its classification system. The current one started in the mid 30s, about the same time that they did in other places in France and North Western Europe. But so the wines are named after where they come from. So that therefore you're talking about a sort of a mixture of geology and geography. This, as we said, this area was an inland sea. So if you start to think of the shoal of the shellfish on this inland sea, when the inland sea resided, I mean, it's actually still happening right now. I mean, the River Saône and the River Rhône are the draining of that inland sea down to the Mediterranean. But as that water pulled back, those shellfish shoals sort of started to break down, and little river valleys formed in them. And inside those river valleys, you sort of, in geological time, you sort of had a wash down into the valley floor. Now you have to think, limestone slurry is clay. So if you have this in geological time, a never-ending sort of flow of limestone slurry down into the plain, at the bottom of these little river valleys, you had a huge pool of clay, and that's where a lot of all these wine villages were formed. A, because they had a source of water, but B, also because that was where the interesting land was for planting grapes. Clay does not necessarily give you the best wine. It gives you really sort of good, solid, simple wine, and that's where the regional appellations are, just at the very bottom of those river valleys. And then you have the village that sits in almost the mouth of this river valley. It's almost, if you look at a map of Burgundy, you see all these famous villages, Volnay, Pommard, Gevrey-Chambertin. They're all sitting in the mouth of a river valley. But as you get closer to the river valley, you have less clay. You have more of the limestone that's broken down over the century, but it's more sort of like, in certain places it's gravel, in certain places it's actually just sheets of rock that have fallen on top of each other, kind of thing. So you end up with this really complex soil makeup that comes out of every single one of these river valleys. So every single village has this clay in outside of it, which is the regional appellation. You've got the village appellation, which is the sort of right where the town is. And then as you go into the river valley, you get a much more complex soil makeup, and the exposition to the sun and all that sort of stuff. That's where you get your Premier Cru and your Grand Cru. So you have 4 different categories. You've got regional appellation, you've got village appellation, you've got Premier Cru and Grand Cru, and they're all in the same place. And so it all depends on which river valley you're in as to what it's called. If you have Volnay, then you have the village appellation is Volnay. The Premier Crus are all Volnay. There are no Grand Crus in Volnay, but I mean, it's the difference between Grand Cru and Premier Cru is really just that sort of. It's like a little extra. It's like perfect exposition, a little bit of a sun trap. You get that extra half a degree of sugar maturity kind of thing. But I mean, essentially, all 4 of those categories that we call the appellation are found in every one of those river valleys. And then that's the beginning of the notion of terroir, and that's where the monks, like 1,000 years ago, were here working this land, and they got to know where every single one of those areas was. They could tell you from their records over the centuries that here at this path, the land, the soil, the geology changed. So that's where they were actually able to tell us how the land breaks down and where the good land is and not. And it was only really recently today when science codified it. And that's when in the 1930s, when they actually came up with this Appellation system, they were just sort of confirming what the monks told us 1,000 years ago. I mean, that's essentially the way that the Appellation system got started here.
Hello, I'm Dennis Sherman from BurgundyWine.com. We're based in Burgundy and have been for over 35 years. We specialize in small production, hidden gem winemakers, and we deliver their wines directly to your door at prices that will convince you when we say great Burgundy does not have to be expensive. If you can't come to Burgundy, we'll bring Burgundy to you. So join us at BurgundyWine.com, where shipping is always included on case quantities.